What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller, Tarik LaCour, Shane Black from Hook'emHeadlines.com and the Hook 'em Horn Show. We're coming back at y'all today with a look back at the Kansas State game last weekend. Got pretty fortunate on that one. The Kansas State decided to go for it on fourth down. Texas comes up with a really, really nice fourth down stop. The interior defensive line blows up the play. Ends up batting the ball to the ground after Will Howard just tries to get rid of it, and Texas comes away with a win. This coming weekend, Texas got a 4-5 TCU team that has some firepower on offense, and reigning college football playoff national champion runner-up, but also a team that's obviously struggling to match that same success this year. They're really missing a lot of the playmakers they had last
season. You can't just lose 8 people to the NFL and play just like nothing happened.
That seemed to be the expectation during a lot of the preseason previews that I was reading, that they had a good offseason in the transfer portal, but you're just not replacing guys like Kendre Miller, Max Duggan, Quentin Johnston with the snap of a finger. And I'll get into this a little bit later. Their defense has been a little underwhelming to me this year. I thought they'd be a little bit better, considering all the returning talent they had, especially in the secondary. But anyway, I'll be at the game Saturday night in Fort Worth, so I'm excited to see what Texas has in store, and I think there will be a lot of burnt orange in the stands on Saturday night. Sark even said that in his press conference today, where he was hoping to see burnt orange packing it in at Amon G. Carter Stadium. Ticket prices are really expensive for that, and I'm sure that a lot of Texas fans going to that game in Fort Worth is a big reason why. But let's spend a little bit of time talking about the Kansas State game. I think for Texas, that second half is obviously one to forget. You got a lot of lessons to learn from that, but I think that for Texas, you just saw some of the same issues pop up that you had in the Houston game on defense, in the sense that an offense spread you out. You weren't able to make the necessary adjustments when they started targeting specific one-on-one matchups, or were able to kind of evade the pass rush. And so on offense, you obviously had 2 very untimely turnovers. Jonathan Brooks had a fumble, and then Maalik Murphy had his second interception of the game, which was a very poorly thrown ball, I believe, just a bad decision. Overall, though, I think a win is a win for Texas is, I think, the biggest takeaway from that one. What are some of y'all's thoughts coming out of the Kansas State game?
Well, Sark matches his win total from last year, so in good shape there. 8 wins already. Control our own destiny to the Big 12 championship, so that's good. To play Andrew's alma mater, Oklahoma State, who also picks up a win there. The biggest thing for me coming out was we really need Quinn Ewers back, and we need him back now. Because basically, that game was Texas trying to let Kansas State get back into the game, because Kansas State is a good team. They're disciplined, but they weren't going to get back into the game on their own. Without those turnovers, they probably weren't going to score. They only got any momentum once they were over the 50-yard line, and we were the ones putting them there. And then, the momentum swings in college football are real things, unlike in the NFL. So that was not good, but also good to see Jonathan Brooks get over 1,000 yards. So Sark carries on that tradition. Good to see DKR still rocking, undefeated at home this season. Have a chance to go perfect at home if we beat Texas Tech. And I mean, I feel like we didn't learn a lot about Texas in this game, but it was glad for the win. I mean, Texas proved that they can kind of stop lots of pretty good offenses with their defense, but no defense is going to stop forever if you keep giving the other team on the 12-yard line, on the 30, or things like that. So, but if you didn't have high draft stock and Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat, those guys are making a lot of money this season. So there you are. Oh, and also Cam Williams, although he had several false starts, I thought he was very solid in his first start. No sacks given up. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, I kind of echo. It's not really. It doesn't really matter how it looks. If you can keep stacking wins, like Tark said, you control your own destiny in the conference, and you'll set yourself up pretty nice nationally. And we're at the point, 3 regular season games remaining, and Texas is 8-1. So it's all you can really ask for. We knew Kansas State was going to be a tricky team. Granted, once Texas increased the lead to 27-20 in the third quarter, I thought they were going to be able to salt it away. It was just self-inflicted wounds, and then it kind of snowballed from there. Like Tark mentioned, once Kansas State kind of got the momentum midway through the third quarter, they didn't really look back, and Texas helped them out by giving them the ball a lot. But I think takeaways from this game, we knew how stout the Texas run defense was, but they once again just proved it against a Kansas State team that's one of the best rushing attacks in the nation. And Texas gave up 29 carries for 43 yards. So that's incredibly impressive, especially with the way, the schedule sets up and a potential Big 12 championship game against Oklahoma State, who really relies on Ollie Gordon in that rushing attack. That bodes well for the Horns. But completely agree with Tarek. You want to get Quinn back as fast as you can. I know some early reports are still leaning towards Iowa State for him to return. But, yeah, well, eventually, these mistakes from Maalik are going to cost you a football game. And I know Texas is going to be a pretty solid favorite in their final 3 games. But, I mean, we've all been following this team for a long, long time, and we know they're not going to make it easy. And having Quinn in there would make it slightly easier. So I'm hoping.
You turn the ball over like you did on Saturday at TCU, you're losing.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. We did. I will say, and I know I'm pushing back against my own point here. We said the same thing after the BYU game. If you turn it over like that, you won't beat Kansas State. I think just credit to Texas being able to finish this game. This is not a game they win in the first 2 years of the Sark era, nor is it a game they win, over the last 14 years. So to be able to kind of buckle up when you needed most on those 4 snaps from inside the 6-yard line to salt the game was massive from the defense. And yeah, if Texas if Texas even has 1 turnover a game the rest of the season, they're going to win the remainder of the regular season games. It's just those self-inflicted wounds that give the other teams confidence, and that's what's going to kill you. So hopefully we just got to avoid those.
I guess to follow up on what y'all are saying, I'll start with the quarterback. The quarterback situation. Obviously you want Quinn Ewers back for TCU this weekend. I wrote something up on the site on Sunday that was essentially saying a multitude of different reports that it was like a coin flip that Ewers was going to play on Saturday. That was kind of the indication I was getting from an Onwar Richardson report over the weekend, as well as something from Horns 24/7. But I think that, I'm not setting myself up well with the stat I pulled for this. Looking at some of the stats from Maalik last weekend, if you just look at the box score stats or even a lot of the PFF stuff, it paints a very bleak picture. He had a turnover-worthy play percentage of over 10. The other thing that kind of caught my eye is that, and I don't mean to focus all on the negative here, I'm just going to start there and then I'll focus more on the positive for Maalik. Another thing for the negative is that his adjusted completion percentage was 52.8. So, if you essentially saying that half of his passes were catchable balls. And then I was looking through it today. One of the things I think he's just got to be a little bit, I think he's just got to be a little bit more composed in the pocket. None of those passes were throwaways. So, he goes 8 of 26, around 30% completion percentage to finish out the game in the final 45 minutes. So obviously there's a lot of points for him to work on this week in practice. Sark mentioned in his press conference today that, there's a lot of lessons to learn from Maalik, and you got to have a little bit more confidence in yourself. You can't get so down on yourself in the second half after a turnover. 1 interception, you can shake that off. That's fine. But clearly he was still kind of down on himself, down on confidence in the second half. And obviously I think that played some role in the multitude of turnover worthy plays that he had in this game. And overall, I think for his two performances, you've seen the complete Jekyll and Hyde of Maalik Murphy. One of the weird trends I thought, and this will lead into something a little bit more positive for me for Murphy's performances. Um, he played I thought three pretty solid quarters against BYU, and then one solid quarter against Kansas State. Obviously, against BYU, I don't, you weren't as difficult of a situation. BYU's not nearly as good of a team as Kansas State. Murphy was able to spread the ball around to his playmakers more. He didn't have to rely on his arm and his decision making as much, to pick up yards in the passing game and move the chains. And Kansas State, obviously, Texas came in with a good game plan. Adonai Mitchell had a one-on-one matchup pretty much all day long, and Murphy was able to, really exploit that. Nearly 150 receiving yards and a touchdown for Adonai. Xavier Worthy was double covered for most of this game, so you had a lot of room for guys like Jordan Whittington, JT Sanders, Adonai Mitchell. I would like to see a little bit more JT Sanders involvement, but this is kind of where I'm going with it, is that I think with Maalik playing against a 3-3-5 defense this weekend, a lot of the playmakers you have, especially with JT being healthier, potential ways to get CJ Baxter and Jonathan Brooks involved in the passing game. I think that there's a lot that they could do with Jay Witt in the slot. I don't know if y'all remember 2 years ago against TCU, Jay Witt had a really big game, including, I think he had the game-winning touchdown against TCU in 2021. TCU, they've been really inconsistent with their slot coverage and, some of their linebacker coverage between the numbers. So I think that this could be a game where Jordan Whittington really, really feasts. And so that's what I'm saying from a more positive standpoint, is I think there's going to be ways here that you can get, Sanders out in the flats, out in the seam, get some easy completions here. I think it's going to be easier to get some of these first read looks against TCU. It's not going to be easier to complete the deep ball. I don't think TCU has a more talented and more athletic secondary than Kansas State. But I do think there will be opportunities for them where you can kind of pick out some of the good from the last 2 weeks and say, okay, we picked out the good. Let's work on, some of these areas of improvement, namely the decision making in the short and intermediate passing game.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think those first reads are crucial, because when, he has the time and is composed, he delivers an accurate ball. But, once he's in the pocket for over 3 seconds, starts to get a little happy feet, starts to short arm balls, sail balls. And, in the third and fourth quarter, he was just bad. He was flat out bad. And it's not only these turnover worthy plays that you mentioned, which is, nearly or over 10% is pretty crazy. But there were some balls to Xavier Worthy that he was just short arming and throwing not even anywhere near Worthy. So, yeah, I think setting Murphy up for success on the first read is going to be crucial, because we've seen that, he has the ability to deliver strikes across the middle of the field to the sidelines. He has the arm strength to do it. So I think that's pretty crucial, because to have him try to diagnose a defense and make the right read and also complete the pass is where you start to, find yourself in some trouble.
Yeah, I really have nothing to add there. Hopefully, I think this is another game where as you head into late into the year, you really lean on the run and your defense. I think this is another game to do that and use play action pass. As for Jordan Whittington, he was also the only one last year, even though this was a losing effort. He was the only one who played winning football on offense when we played TCU last year. So hopefully his playing winning football this year will also result in a win. So, and also I'm really tired of losing to TCU. So let's not do that again.
Well, and, I think kind of the icing on top of the cake for this conversation of Maalik Murphy, if he is starting his third straight game this weekend, you can't be down on yourself if you make a mistake in a road environment under the lights, against I will say, a TCU fan base that likes to taunt Texas on the sideline and get really rowdy, and they like to get in your head and things like that. It's, this is also a TCU offense that can score. I think they can score at will if Josh Hoover is, not throwing bad interceptions on 15, 20-yard pass it to the boundary like he has in certain spots against teams like Iowa State, Texas Tech. Also, maybe we're seeing Chandler Morris this weekend, so there's like quarterback situations for both sides. You got some quarterback injuries for both starters. Overall, I'd ask y'all this. If Murphy is the quarterback on Saturday, I'm more thinking like, what would you consider a successful day? Whether that's statistics or just, the eye test.
I think not. Go ahead, Tarek. You can go ahead.
I'm very simple. I want no turnovers.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
That's it.
He could throw for 150 yards on 40 attempts, but if that interception count is at 0, it's fine by me. Like, I don't even care if he's not pushing the ball down the field. As long as he can, I mean, we've seen it to go 75 yards against this Texas defense multiple times in a game is really tough for opposing offenses. TCU, like you mentioned, Andrew, they've had their own struggles on the offensive side of the ball. So again, if the Horned Frogs are going to hang around in this game, it's going to be because Texas gives them the ball in plus territory. So it's all about holding on to the ball. And, I'll say it, unpopular opinion, you're obviously not going to throw Arch in to the second half of the game last weekend. If we come out in the first quarter and Murphy turns it over twice in the first 15, 20 minutes of the game, I don't see why you don't put Arch Manning in the game, because you can't just keep throwing Murphy out there. If he eventually he's going to lose you a football game. And I have confidence that he will eventually be a good college quarterback. And I think he could do it in Austin. But with everything you have on the line in regard to the conference and the national picture, if he comes out really slow and it gives the ball away a couple times, I don't see why you don't turn it to Arch, because you got to do something different. And he's really hurt you, luckily, against a BYU team that couldn't capitalize and a Kansas State team that did capitalize, and you relied on your defense to pull that one out. But I think the leash should be short on Saturday. Granted, I don't know if it will be. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the Arch conversation at this point seems kind of like a foregone conclusion that Sark really wants to keep that red shirt.
But he can at this point. I mean, there's only
that's true.
So just go ahead and do it. I thought it was interesting in the presser today. Sark did praise Arch and things that he likes about him. So
he did that. He did that like 2 weeks ago, though. I don't know how much that's really indicative.
Right, but one thing I kept noticing this too, and Shane already wrote this weeks ago when Quinn first got hurt. There were times in the Kansas State game and in the BYU game where there were first downs there if Maalik Murphy was just a little less heavy of foot. And, so you got, and that's another thing. I think that Texas just has to keep sustaining drives and just not giving the other team the ball. They kind of have to play bully ball at this point until Quinn gets back, because they can.
True. I mean, so last thing I'll say on Maalik, and then I'll talk about Quinn for a little bit, and then move on to another subject. But, Shane, you mentioned something interesting, right? Time to throw for Maalik. It's just a little north of 2 seconds this year. I guess I hadn't really put credence to it. He by far has the shortest time to throw of any quarterback in the Big 12 this season, with even a minimum of 15 reps. I ran this number on PFF. Well, just now, I remember seeing something about the time to throw earlier today. I'm kind of astounded by that. I mean, that's incredibly fast. 2.1 seconds average time to throw. And so I think against a team like TCU, where, again, the defense has been up and down for them this season, are they capable of generating a pass rush? Yes, but it hasn't really been there this season. They're in the bottom half among pass rushing teams in the Big 12. Do you try to give Maalik still maybe some easier reads, or maybe a first or second read play, but something that maybe is another second to develop? Do you try to expand that part of his game this week, I guess, would be my question? Or are you going to still try to stick to?
I think you have to. I think it's a good point by you, and kind of going back to what Tarek said about, him being heavy of foot. I think he knows that he's not the most mobile guy, obviously, and that's another
Mind
reason
you,
why.
the injuries. He
Yes,
also,
correct. Yeah,
yeah,
and so that's another reason why he's trying to get the ball out so quickly. Sark has said multiple times in pressers that, Murphy has to be okay with throwing the ball away, with taking a sack. And I think if you can get in his head that, yeah, we don't want to fall behind the chains, but if you take 2 or 3 sacks, it's not the worst thing in the world. We've seen you're able to connect on some deep shots, so you can always get it back that way. And also, it'll create more success on other passing downs, even when the defense isn't getting to him, because he seems like he just doesn't want to lose those 8 yards when it's not the biggest deal in the world. If you can get in your head that, hey, I'm going to stand in the pocket, 1 second longer, because then things will start to open up. I mean, you have so much talent on the outside; those guys are going to eventually find some space.
yeah, that's fair. I guess I'll cap it unless Tarek, you had anything to add to that. Okay. So I'll just end it here by saying I do think against a team like TCU where it's going to be harder, I think, to hit some of those deep shots unless you're really running the ball well and forcing them up closer to the line of scrimmage. Um, you know, you're gonna have to get a lot of stuff done in the short and intermediate passing game this weekend. I think you're gonna have to be effective there. Again, you will have to manage turnovers, yes, but I'm assuming TCU is going to try to sell out to stop the run, just like most teams have done this season against Texas, specifically when Maalik Murphy has been starting the last 2 weeks. And so, yeah, I mean, I just think it's crazy too. On passes, he's got 2.5 seconds or more, where he's had 2.5 seconds or more to throw the ball from the pocket. He has the highest turnover worthy play percentage of all Big 12 quarterbacks, but he also has the highest big time throw percentage. So he's just really like a big boomer bust sort of guy. I know a lot of that's just because of the deep shots, but um, yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of highs and lows. I said that in my post game takeaways, just where we've gotten essentially the full Jekyll and Hyde experience with Maalik. Okay, so I said I wanted to mention something about Quinn Ewers, and I think for me, it's just that next point I was going to make was kind of talking about like the, I guess more of the injury dynamic. I feel like I'm talking about a lot of pitch counts. The main guy I wanted to focus on was Jalen Catalon. It sounds like there's actually a chance that Catalon returns this weekend. Do y'all think it's worth it to throw him out? I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and obviously he's got a really, really spotty injury history going back to his time at Arkansas. But do you think at this point you just say, I'm going to save Jalen Catalon for maybe the Iowa State game, and you see where you are in a week or two, and potentially even for the Big 12 championship game?
So what I think you should do, I think Catalan, if and when he comes back, he's probably going to get injured again. Knock on wood. I hope not for his sake, but like you said, Andrew, the injury history is just there. He can't stay healthy. I would do what you did with Jahdae Barron in Houston. Have him dress, not really playing that much, and if you get in the second half and you need him, you throw him out there. But it was interesting. I mean, we've seen the safeties rotate so much over the past couple of weeks, but for the most part on Saturday, it was Taff and Thompson in there. Derek Williams 21 snaps and Taff had 65 and Jaron Thompson 63. And obviously Keaton Crawford didn't dress. So Taff and Thompson actually, played pretty decently. That's the weakest part of not only the defense but probably the team. So they're going to get beat here and there. But yeah, I thought they played, pretty well, all things considered. So if I'm Jalen Catalon, if I'm Sark, I'd probably dress Catalan, and if we need him, we'll throw him in there. If not, try to save him because he's probably going to get banged up again. So it's just when can we deploy his talent to, where it means the most. You don't want him getting hurt in a TCU game. You're up 21 if it comes to that.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. The last thing, and again, if y'all got to get going here anytime soon, understood. This was really the last like major talking point I wanted to hit on this week was between the TCU game coming up, Iowa State game the following weekend. I see a lot of situations for Texas where you can obviously get tripped up by the flyover defense. You know, you're facing two teams that play that 3-3-5 flyover that's given a lot of issues. This is one thing I mentioned in my overreactions, that I think Sark is just kind of overthinking and overcomplicating the play calling at this point. I guess overcomplicating was the word I used for overreactions. You know, he on early downs, so first and second downs, in the second half, specifically once Kansas State started going on their run to chip into the lead after it was 27-7. Texas passed the ball a double-digit number of times. The split between passing and rushing attempts was about 55-45. Am I incorrect here in thinking that should have been like a 70-30 split to rushing to passing? So at this point, right, even if teams are selling out to stop the run, are you just going to try to overpower them because you are playing so many 3-3-5 defenses?
That's what I would do. None of these defenses worry me that much down the stretch. The last one that really worried me was Kansas State. They were running the 3-3-5 too. So my thought is you've kind of figured it out at this point. Maalik Murphy or Arch or even Quinn give you a good reason just to run the ball. Keep doing it. Baxter looks like he's getting healthier each week. He's doing well. Even Jaden Blue, when he gets a chance, do that. Get throw the short stuff where you need to, take a few shots, but make them kind of sell out. And then the thing is, no defense really has the athletes to match up with Texas the way like a few defenses in the earlier part of the season have. So I think that you just kind of run the ball until they prove to you that they can really stop it. And doesn't seem like many people can at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that drive where Brooks fumbled, it was going to be a heavy dose of the run, and I would expect Texas would have moved the ball down the field pretty well doing that. I think for Sark too, it's a little bit of a conundrum in his own head where he looks at his team and he's like, I got Xavier Worthy, I got Adonai Mitchell, I got JT Sanders, like should be able to just sling this thing all over the yard. But I think eventually he's got to realize that might not be the best thing for this team in its current state. So, looking at the talent and the talent advantage Texas has on the outside, I understand why he throws it a lot and why he wants to take those deep shots. But I do agree with both of y'all that we should see a heavy dose of the running game to close out the regular season, regardless of who the quarterback is.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I want to give some parting shots here, and then we can get up and rolling. So at the end here, I wanted to do a quick rapid fire with y'all. So, I do my studs and duds at the end of all my post-game reaction videos. I'll start off this. I know a lot of people saw that, and there were some criticisms of it. I had Cam Williams as a dud from last weekend. I did go back and rewatch. He was very good in pass pro. Had a couple of blown blocks in run blocking. I will say that. Had the false starts. So up and down, but good overall first start. I would probably take that back if I could. And now I do. I don't regret, however, putting like Maalik Murphy in the duds category just because, a lot of people came at me for that, which I don't really.
Well, I don't understand this with the Texas fan base. Why are we babying Maalik Murphy? It seems like there's this complex where it's like, oh, give him time. Like when I wrote the article about Arch potentially getting a chance where no one really read, they just commented on it. It's like, why? It seems like we're giving this guy like so much leeway. Like, do you not understand this is the best team we've had in 14 years? We have a chance to do something special. I'd sell my soul to make the college football playoff. And the guy throws some terrible interceptions, and the whole fan base is like, oh, but look at the good he did, and give him a chance. It's like, come on, Maalik Murphy was a dud. He was the biggest dud of the game last week. Like, how are people going to give you?
Maalik Murphy was the reason that game was a game. It's that simple.
And it's a fair point because if I look back to other redshirt freshman quarterbacks we've had, we didn't have this patience with Hudson Card a couple of years ago. I know that there was no patience for him. Quinn Ewers even last year, people were like, oh, well, not all he's cracked up to be.
Yeah, the difference is Texas keeps winning football games, not because of Maalik Murphy. They're winning because of the rest of the team. If this was
They're
another
winning
year,
in spite of Maalik Murphy.
in spite of Maalik Murphy's play, and if this was another year like when Hudson Card was playing or Casey Thompson was playing and Texas was losing these games, people would be calling for Murphy. But they see the result and they're like, all right, I'm fine with that. But eventually, it's going to catch up to you. So, I mean, I think that, and I get it. He is a redshirt freshman. It was his second career start. You got to have some leeway. But man, it seems like people are just giving this guy a pass, or it's like, look at the record. Look at where we sit in the playoff rankings. Like, come on, man. This is like shit or get off the pot time. Sorry for a lack of a better phrase. But
what worries me, and we'll move on, is in looking at the game, it looked to me like I didn't see like discernible improvement from week to week in Murphy. It looked like he just kept getting worse. Yeah, he had a few good throws, but it's like just as the game goes on, just keeps getting worse, keeps getting worse, keeps getting worse. Now, in a way, you could say, well, Kansas State's a good defense. Yes, but like it was kind of the same thing with BYU too. So
yeah,
that's the problem. And like people were saying, like, well, Quinn's first pass was an interception against ULM. I was like, yeah, and then he completed like 19 in a row. No problem. We haven't seen has Malik gotten like 7 in a row or something like that?
To start the Kansas State game, he was really good. And
yeah, someone said he looked like Quinn against Alabama the first quarter before he got hurt. And I was like, I don't know if I'd go that far, but okay.
No, he looked good. I get what you're saying.
He looked good, but all right, okay. Move on. Before we get charged with a hate crime.
Right. Rapid fire parting shots here. So, okay, there's a few stat categories I'm going to mention because I think there's some interesting ones. And I want you all to say, it's either going to be an over-under or I guess like you pick someone else to fill that stat category. So first, I mentioned this in my studs and duds that I thought Ethan Burke was one of the best players for us last weekend. I think that's pretty easy to say. He was tremendous, especially after having a knee scope. Man, I had a knee scope on my knee 2 years ago after tearing my meniscus and partial tear in the MCL. I still like get knee pains from time to time, man. I don't know.
He's a lacrosse player. He's just different.
I played lacrosse in college. Whatever.
Yeah, he's just different.
Yeah, I played goalie and had 2 knee braces on my knees when I was 20, so different situation, I guess. Anyway, he's at 5 sacks right now. Anthony Hill and Barron Sorrell are tied for second on the team with 3 sacks. Does Ethan Burke end the season with the most sacks on the team? This is probably the easy question.
Yes, let's move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Harder one on defense. Interceptions. Michael Taft right now leads the team with 3 because he's got 3 in as many games. You got Jalen Ford and Jaron Thompson that have 2 each, and then Jahdae Barron, Terrence Brooks, and Austin Jordan that each have 1. Does Michael Taft finish the season with the most interceptions on defense?
Yes.
Okay.
I would lean yes. I think Brooks is going to get at least 1 more, maybe 2. He's just so aggressive on the outside. I think he's going to jump a couple routes, and it seems like he's dropped a couple this season too. So I like how aggressive he is, but I think if Taft gets 1 more, I think 4 it would be the leader. So yeah, I tend to agree, but I'd say don't sleep on number 8 out there.
The person I actually think that would really challenge him would be Jalen Ford.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with it.
Ford has a way of just sneaking and getting interceptions. Where you're like, oh, I was like, you can do that, okay?
Yeah, very true. Receiving yards. So right now, Xavier Worthy leads the team with 620. Adonai Mitchell is second with 576. But Adonai Mitchell's on a tear right now. He is the only receiver in the Big 12 in the last 2 weeks that has over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. So who finishes the season as her leading receiver in yards, Adonai or Xavier?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Keep in mind that potentially we have as many as
5 games?
6 games left if we make the national championship.
Hopefully 6, yes.
Yeah. So technically almost like half a season left. I mean,
yeah,
it's too early to be asking these questions.
Half an A&M season.
So, damn, Shane. The other thing is, it really depends on how much more. I think Malik and Ad and I have a really good connection. Don't know
Yeah.
why. So it depends on how much more Malik plays. But I'm gonna go. But I'm gonna go Worthy will do it
Yeah, I
because I
agree
have
with
a
that.
feeling people are gonna just start rolling over to AD, and that'll let Worthy get open.
Completely
Okay.
agree with everything that Tarek said. Adonai and Murphy have that connection, but Murphy's probably not going to be out there too much longer. And also with what he said, Andrew, you mentioned this earlier in the video. X has been getting doubled a lot, and that's just open space for Mitchell. And I think that's going to start to change with what Mitchell's been doing. And I do think that there's been a little bit of a frustration that Sark can see with X. He's been a great teammate, but just it seems like every time he's targeted. I know Nash posted a nice video of all of his targets, but Malik's just really not getting him the ball. So I think when Quinn comes back and in the bigger games, hopefully a Big 12 championship and anything beyond, even the Tech game, I think Quinn's gonna once again establish that connection with Worthy, and I'd expect him to finish top of the receiving leaderboard.
Okay. Jonte Cook currently has 5 catches for 110 receiving yards this season. Does he get to 10 catches this season?
I would say no. I would like him to. I think ideally he gets to 10 catches, but I think what we're talking about, trying to run the ball more, the opportunities will be more limited. I could easily. I do believe that he'll have one more big play where it's like Jonte Cook 35-yard gain or touchdown over the top. But I don't think he's going to have the volume. For even if we play 6 games, I don't see him averaging a catch a game.
Dark.
I say yeah. I think he will.
Okay. And then so
Which means he'll get 9 catches.
fair enough. So okay, I guess my answers on this. I think that Ethan Burke, yeah, I think he would lead the team in sacks. He's just been so impactful, especially recently. I think that Adonai Mitchell ends up leading the team in receiving yards. I think that Jalen Ford leads in interceptions. As much as I like Jonte Cook, I do agree with you, Shane. I don't think he quite gets there. But on the topic of Jalen Ford, one of my overreactions this week, and I don't know if this is an overreaction or not. I just know that there's a lot of good linebackers in the Big 12 this year, so that he'll have some competition for the Defensive Player of the Year award. But I said he's kind of regained that form. I mean, he's been playing really good football the last few weeks. I ran this number, what was it, earlier today? He's the only Power 5 linebacker with at least a dozen defensive stops and no missed tackles in the last 2 weeks. So he's got some 30 to 32 combined tackles in the last 3 games, no missed tackles. He's been playing. I thought he played better in pass coverage last weekend than he had been the last few weeks prior. He's kind of picked apart against OU. Do y'all think that Jalen Ford wins Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year?
No.
That's a good question.
No.
Yeah. Who is he competing with right now? I will say
it doesn't matter. It's the Big 12. They're not giving it to him.
That's true. Just give it to him last year. Yeah.
Let's like that. It has nothing to do with Ford himself. I think Ford should win it last year and this year, but it's the Big 12. Just like they're not giving you that PI, they're not giving Ford the. Like no one in Texas is going to get any awards from the Big 12.
Yeah, and I will say about Ford is he struggled in the Oklahoma game, and we heard all the defense after that game was like, all right, it's time to buckle down, and Ford really has stepped up the past 3 weeks. I'd argue that he might, like you said, no slight to Ford, but he might not even be the most deserving on the team with what we've seen from Big 93 lately. I mean, that guy is incredibly impactful on every snap he's on the field.
Yeah, I'd agree with that sentiment.
It's hard to get counting stats when you're a defensive tackle, though. That's the problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, but we might have we definitely should have the Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
The only thing is, let's just win the Big 12 and call it a day.
All right. But that's all I had for some of those parting shots. I thought, we got some interesting team leaders for statistics right now. So, anything else y'all got before we get up and going?
Win the Big 12.
Win the Big 12, yeah. Week by week. Shout out Bert Auburn. Hasn't missed a kick since Kansas. 8 for 8 on field goals, 4 of them from 40 yards. If he misses one of those kicks against Kansas State, we lose that game. So shout out Bert, because there was a lot of questions earlier in the season when he was missing kicks, and no, he's not. Good for him.
Yeah. Well, and
also keep Alex Grinch's family in your thoughts and prayers at this time.
He'll be all right. He gets compensated fairly enough.
Yeah.
Or was getting compensated fairly enough.
He's still got buyout money.
Yeah.
That's true. Also, Ryan Sanborn, highest percentage of punts down inside the 10-yard line in Big 12 play this year.
He is so good.
Jeff Banks is earning his paycheck.
That is for sure.
Everybody on the staff is getting a pay increase after this year, I have a feeling.
Yeah. We'll wait and see on Blake Gideon. No offense to him, but
I don't. Okay, I think people have just been out had a
since 2008.
Gideon, ever since he dropped that interception. I'm like, people are not letting that go, especially when we lost the Kansas game because another white safety dropped the ball. I was like, like identical fashion too. I was like, oh man, like where have I seen this before?
But anyway, yeah.
Brennan Schooler. Yeah, Schooler dropped the. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that one's tough too because he was a wide receiver. Anyway, well,
hey, still catches it better than Joshua Moore, I guess.
Jesus, dude.
Yeah.
Low blows. Yeah, forgot about him for a while. So anyway, we'll be back in a couple of days for the preview. I will be out at the TCU game this weekend. So adding hopefully to the sea of burnt orange in Fort Worth. But yeah,
get Sark his first 9-win regular season.
Hey, Texas is 1-0 when I go to see them play in Fort Worth. So
nice.
Yep. Good. Let's make it 2-0. Anyway, for Andrew Miller, Tarik LaCour, Shane Black, that's pretty much it. Welcome.
Welcome.